Hello, my name's Andrea Macmillan and I'm one of His Majesty's Inspectors of Education. In this podcast, we're focusing on an aspect of work from Edinburgh College that links with the recently published HMIE thematic review of English for speakers of other languages, known as ESOL. Today, we'll be looking at the college's approach to employability courses for ESOL learners. Let's do some introductions. Sarah.
Hello, my name's Sarah Dono and I'm the head of school for the college-based ESOL section at Edinburgh College.
And Lucy.
Hi there, I'm Lucy Ferguson. I am one of the curriculum team managers in college-based ESOL at Edinburgh College.
Can you tell me what was the improvement area that you identified and how you knew that was an area that you wanted to work on and the data you used to come to that conclusion?
Yep, certainly. What we were looking at was trying to support learners so that they could move out of ESOL at an earlier stage and into their preferred area of work or further study into mainstream courses in the college. Like probably a lot of ESOL providers across Scotland, we were very much oversubscribed in the department and we wanted to kind of free up more space to let some of the lower level learners come in, but we had some groups at the higher level who we felt ready to move on, but there was some maybe reticence from employers or mainstream college courses to take ESOL learners in. So we thought we'd do some work and we'd really push the idea that these learners were ready to move on and out of ESOL, that would free up space for other learners to come in and let them start their journey on their chosen career path, either studying or working. And the reason we did that was the feedback from the learners and from lecturers. So each semester, lecturers would be doing progression conversations, tutorials with learners, and learners were saying, I'm really keen to move on into, whether it was childcare, construction, computing, but there weren't necessarily the jobs available for them or the places on the courses for them. So the feedback we had from our lecturers and from our learners were that they felt they were ready, but we didn't have the pathways in the college for them to actually move on.
Thank you. And can you tell us a wee bit about, once you've identified this issue, how you tackled it, what you did, and who was involved?
Just to add there, we also looked at the wider community, actually, when we were thinking about this area of improvement. We thought about gaps in the employment market, the needs of the local community. There was some research done internally by the college and I think in the wider community about employment needs. And it was determined that there were gaps in sectors such as healthcare and childcare. IT was in there as well, and also construction. And this information all together, the local community needs and information that we got from our lecturers and our students, fed into our development of these employability courses with these specific areas.
Yeah, so as Lucy said, I did a research project with Neil Gardner, one of my colleagues, looking at the impact of our ESOL for Work programs. And we met with some employers who had worked with our students on work placements. And that was how we managed to identify the key areas where there was a skills gap in the employment market. And the employers were saying, we have jobs, but we have nobody to fill them. And we were going, well, we have the students that really want to fill these gaps. So that's how we identified the gaps. So, and once we'd done that, we started liaising within the college with specific departments that we had identified to highlight progression routes and talk to them and say, can we work together to have an easier progression route out of ESOL and into the mainstream courses that you're offering? So we were looking at what are the key key areas that our students will need during the ESOL, the key units that will then help them progress onto the mainstream course and have them be prepared to study in those courses. So we really worked on creating progression pathways in the college. We were working with curriculum team managers, heads of schools, to find lecturers who would be willing to work with the ESOL lecturers as part of an ESOL course servicing units related to childcare, healthcare, computing, construction. Yeah.
Another element that we considered while thinking about these courses were work placements. We already have a number of courses that include a work placement element, which is really successful by and large. So we expanded this recently to include our childcare course that we opened up last year. We liaised with the work placement officer from the childhood practice department, and the work placement officers from our department worked closely together, securing placements for all students, and the program has been really, really successful.
That's great to hear. Thanks very much for that. Were there challenges to the work that you did, unexpected things? How did you overcome these?
One of the challenges was the servicing lecturers working with the ESOL learners who were at a slightly lower level. Some of them had experience of working with ESOL lecturers as they'd already achieved their IELTS or their National 5 ESOL. So they were used to working with people who didn't have English as their first language, but then asking them to come and work with learners who were a slightly lower level, that was quite a challenge for some of the lecturers who were working with them, and also for those lecturers understanding the cultural gaps that they could assume with their native students, but that there were gaps in knowledge that could at times be a barrier to learning. So getting them to think about that. But what we did there was actually we offered free training to anyone in the college who was interested who doesn't teach ESOL. So we've run an introduction to TESOL course, which looked at kind of the nature of our learners, where they've come from, what their motivations are, where they want to go, but also looked at how lecturers can grade their language, how they can be aware of kind of cultural events in the classroom that might cause a barrier to learning. So we had about 30 lecturer or members of staff from the college go through that training, and about half of them have actually decided to move on and do the CELTA training course as well, so that they feel more prepared to work with our lecturers on those kind of hybrid courses.
We also had a particular challenge where there was a perception that students needed to have a higher level of English for these mostly vocational courses like construction. So where we have the more practical or vocational courses, really the message we were trying to get across was that the students needed enough English to be able to do those courses and therefore those roles, those jobs, but not necessarily have the IELTS 5.5 qualification that's needed for mainstream college courses. So it was just really breaking down those barriers and perceptions of what was needed for those courses and supporting the departments to be able to support students in their courses.
Thanks very much. And obviously the work was impactful and you saw positive outcomes from it. Can you tell us a wee bit about what the result of that and how you've measured that impact?
We can excuse me. We can see this in many different areas, actually. We looked at our performance indicators, thinking about how successful the students were, and the success rates remain really high on these courses. Motivation is really high on these courses. Students want to do really well because they see it as the next step in their career. We looked at our progression numbers, so that means students progressing on to higher level courses or different courses, and especially progression routes onto mainstream courses. So students doing these employability ESOL plus courses and then moving on to a mainstream course in the college, just to be able to further their career and get on in their studies. So we looked at all of these areas. The other area that we could see a significant positive result in is students going on to employment. So we noted that many students went on to secure roles in their area that they hadn't had before, especially with courses where they had a work placement. Many students went on to continue to volunteer with their placement provider, which was great for them to be able to have that link into industry. And in some cases, students were even able to secure employment with their work placement providers too. So great result for them.
And
thank you very much.
Can I just add there as well that the student application numbers for these courses remain really high. We've recently opened ESOL applications for next academic year, and all the courses, especially the ESOL for Work courses, are oversubscribed.
Thank you, Sarah. Thinking about what you've changed since you started these courses, is there anything that you're now doing differently, or any next steps that you have identified?
Next steps is expanding the range of subject-specific ESOL for Work courses. We have a number of generalized ESOL for Work courses which do have the work placement and are looking at employability skills, but are not focused on one particular area. We also have the ones that are focused, so we've got construction, computing, childcare, healthcare, but next year we're also hoping to bring on board ESOL for access to hair and beauty. So we're working with the hair and beauty department, and there seems to be a lot of interest with our level 4 students at the moment, thinking that they'll be able to move on to a hair and beauty course. So that's in the pipeline and should be advertised fairly soon for students to apply for next year.
If we're thinking about lessons learned or things that we might do differently, there's always room for improvement, and we always work towards that in everything that we do. But one of the things that we could perhaps just improve slightly on is just getting the right students in the right place. We're continually working on this, and we opened up an ESOL for construction course this year, which has been, we opened up two occurrences, in fact. And it's been a really successful course. Just at times we might not have the exact right student in the right place, and we just need to keep working on that and making sure that the students that we do have on these employability or ESOL Plus courses are in the right place and therefore on the right path.
Thank you. And what you've identified links really well with the thematic report in terms of ESOL learners, that pathway to employment. Thinking about that, and is there advice that you would have for other colleges and their partners who may be trying to tackle similar improvements that they want to make? Because what you've identified certainly featured in the national report.
Yes, absolutely. We do feel that one of the most important things here would be communication, and that's really just keeping communication channels open between the ESOL department and the mainstream departments. It's extremely important. We've mentioned before that it's about having clarity on progression routes, on frameworks, understanding expectations really of everybody involved, and we've found that the more that we can keep those communication channels open, the better the courses and the more successful the courses, and the more supportive and collaborative experience that the students have if we all work together and those channels are open.
Yeah, and added to that, I think making sure there is a clear progression route which is agreed between the ESOL department and the department that students are trying to progress into, so they don't finish the ESOL for hair and beauty course and then find out actually they're not going to accept me onto the mainstream hair and beauty course. So making sure there is a clear and agreed progression route. And I think also you have to be very clear on what specialized language is needed. Our argument is people don't need a high academic level of English to work in construction and hair and beauty, but they do need some specialized language which maybe we're not aware of, but is really important in terms of health and safety if they're working on a construction course, or if they're using bleachers or whatever they might be using in hair and beauty. So there might be language we haven't thought of which is necessary, that you have to think, how can you include that into the course? So that part of the language is actually seen as quite high level, but it's very specialized. So being aware of what that specialized language is, but just making sure that there's not an expectation to have a very high academic level of English, as long as they can do the job and they can do it safely and they can communicate at the level that customers will be happy with. That's what we're aiming for.
Thanks very much. Thank you both. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Lucy, for sharing your wisdom and your expertise. That's been very helpful.